Have you ever stopped to ask yourself what really happened on June 19th, 1865? Was that truly the day that slavery ended in America? Or is there a deeper, more buried story? Because when I started digging, the truth I found was a far cry from what was being taught, if it were being taught at all. And I'm willing to bet it's likely that you weren't taught it either. So let's unlock this together. Before we get started, if you believe that Black history is more than a month and should be told truthfully all year long, go ahead and subscribe to Unlocking Black History. And if you're a parent, a grandparent, and you're teaching your kids what school never did, this channel is for you. And when you're done watching, I want to invite you to join our private Facebook group where we go even deeper into these conversations. That link is in the description below. June 19th, 1865 is significant because it marks the day that Union troops marched into Galveston, Texas to announce the Emancipation Proclamation, freeing enslaved people in the state of Texas. This moment, one that should have been in every American textbook, is now remembered as Juneteenth. But let's unlock this for a minute, because even after the Emancipation Proclamation, chattel slavery was still legal in some parts of the United States, and it remained that way for months after June 19th, 1865. In fact, if you haven't done so already, I recommend watching my first video in this Juneteenth series, where I break down the Emancipation Proclamation and the real story of freedom, its important context for what we're talking about today. So here's the truth. The Emancipation Proclamation only applied to the Confederate States. It left slavery untouched in border states like Delaware, Maryland, Kentucky, Missouri, and later West Virginia. Those states were loyal to the Union and kept slavery alive. So while we were told that Juneteenth meant all the enslaved were free, the facts say otherwise. Let me ask you directly. What did you learn about Juneteenth? Now remember, the question is, what did you learn, not when? Did you learn about the border states? Did anyone ever mention that Delaware and Kentucky continued to practice slavery even after Juneteenth? Be honest with me here. Was any of this ever taught to you? I want to remind you that the border states were the states that primarily supported the Union. And once again, the border states were Delaware, Maryland, Kentucky, Missouri, and after 1863, West Virginia. My grandfather used to say, I bet you $1 to a donut that they never even mentioned it at all. Delaware didn't ratify the 13th Amendment until 1901. Kentucky resisted it too and kept slavery going until December of 1865. Now, isn't that something? First, we were told that Lincoln freed all the slaves. Then we found out that was a myth. Then we were told that Juneteenth was the time in which all the enslaved were freed, only to find out that people were still enslaved long after that too. And this is exactly why I created Unlocking Black History, because if we don't tell our own story, they'll keep rewriting it, or even worse, erasing it. I remember when I first learned about Juneteenth. Although I was at Tennessee State University, it wasn't in the classroom. My friends, who were from Atlanta, and I were out on the town. It was a month prior, and we were talking about what we were going to do over the summer. I remember them going off about how they could not wait to attend the Juneteenth celebration. So I asked the question, hey, what's Juneteenth? I will never forget their response. They were absolutely amazed that I had no idea what Juneteenth was. And I was so embarrassed. Thankfully, they began to educate me on the subject. So you see, when I learned about Juneteenth, I learned about it from friends who grew up in the Black community in the South. Still, I remember my embarrassment, and talking about it now sort of triggers my anger. How could it be that I was a young Black teenager and did not know about Juneteenth? Today, here's what I know. I was not the only young black kid that had never heard about Juneteenth. That is why we must make a deliberate commitment to ensure that our upcoming generation knows everything about our history. Society has gotten away for way too long not providing factual information regarding Juneteenth. Now, okay, it took over 2 years for the proclamation to reach the enslaved in the state of Texas. Why? Okay, we know geographical location was one reason. Yes, Texas was far, rural, and isolated, therefore still under Confederate troops and their stronghold. But let's not sugarcoat this or let anyone else sugarcoat it. A primary reason why they didn't get the information for 2 years later was deliberate suppression. Some of the enslavers in Texas knew about the Emancipation Proclamation. They intentionally kept that information from the people they held in bondage. Prairie View A&M University shares with us a couple of real accounts that they collected. One of the enslaved stated, "When the news came that we were free, Master Henry never called us like everybody else did. We had to go ask him. He came out and he said, we were free. Then he walked back in the house. That was it." Another said, "Before the war, Massa didn't say much about slavery, but when he heard we were free, he cussed and said God never did intend to free niggas. And he cussed till he died. He didn't even tell us we were free until a year or so after we were." Some enslaved people in Texas were still in bondage up to 6 years after the Emancipation Proclamation. After Juneteenth, instead of a celebration and peace, what followed in many parts of Texas was violence, intimidation, and terrorism. North Texas University historian Elizabeth Hayes Turner wrote, "The war may not have brought a great deal of bloodshed to Texas, but peace certainly did." So-called slave patrols, groups of white men, scoured the countryside, hunting for black people trying to claim their freedom. Those caught were beaten, imprisoned, or killed. The same brutal consequences was bestowed upon white Texans who sympathized with or supported the newly freed. And while black families were trying to navigate what freedom would even look like, the local media was painting a different picture, one of white fear and panic over the shifting power dynamic. The Galveston newspaper captured that fear, writing about the plight of white citizens under a government where Texas had no voice. And on June 21st, 1865, just days after Juneteenth, the Galveston Tri-Weekly News printed this chilling statement. "This attempt to overthrow an institution that has become a part of our social system and which our entire population has believed essential to the welfare of both races led to the war. And all we can do in our present entire dependence on the clemency of our conquerors is to repeat to them what we have been urging for so many years, that the attempt to set the Negro free from all restraint and make him politically the equal to the white man will be disastrous to the whole country and absolutely ruinous to the South." Now let that sink in. This wasn't just a delay in communication. This was an intentional resistance, a violent and coordinated pushback against the very idea of black freedom. Now that you know this, do you still see Juneteenth the same way? Does this unlocking of the full story help you better understand how resistance to black freedom didn't end with the document? It evolved. And do you see why we can't afford to allow someone else to tell our history? Because when they do, they leave this part out. Before we close, I want to leave you with the book that takes you deeper. The book is called Juneteenth, The Real Truth and How It Began by Christine Easterly. Now, if you're serious about understanding Juneteenth beyond just a celebration, this is one to add to your bookshelf. You can find this recommendation and other recommendations in our full Black History book library. The link is in the video description below. Last but not least, Subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss next week's installment of our Juneteenth series. Share this video with someone that you know that needs to hear the real history, and come and join us in our private Facebook group where the conversations continue and the community is strong. The link is in the description. And like we always say, if we don't teach it, who will? I'll see you at the next video.